Okay, welcome to meeting 2117 for Thursday, September 16th, 2021. Jimmy Hassan may be late or may not be joining us today through internet difficulties. Do we have a disclosure of conflict of interest for anyone? Okay, and may I have an approval of the agenda today?
With the addendum.
With the addendum, thank you. Bridget, Jeff, thank you. All in favor? Good. May I have the adoption of the minutes from meeting 2115 held on August 19th? Jeff? Christian, all in favor? Good. Okay. Moving on to the communications. Chief, if you'd like to speak on behalf of the communications from the Ministry of the Solicitor General.
Okay, so the first one is regarding guidelines to school emergency and crisis response. And this is from the ministry regarding emergency procedures for elementary and secondary schools in Ontario for this coming school year. And it pertains to having the requirements of minimum 2 lockdown drills per year in partnership with local police services and their alignment with public health guidelines and the ministry's COVID-19 guidance for the schools. So it includes taking into consideration of physical distancing and masking requirements, as well as flexibility to use discussions and visual demonstrations to provide an overview of these emergency crisis response plans to the students when, and especially when responding to bomb threats, those kinds of things. So there's also a document drafted in collaboration with the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office to support school boards when planning for total evacuation fire drills.
Okay, thanks. Next is the mobile crisis.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks for that, the reading of that new amendment or new introduction from the province. But Angie, you mentioned, Chief McNeely, you mentioned bomb threats. Now, we had that experience at LCVI a couple of years ago, and I just wonder with these announcements whether they you feel like that this would be helpful and how that would play out. Like, did you see a need for this? If you could share just a little bit more to the community, how that experience played out here locally, because when you mention bomb threats, it feels like I think a lot of people would imagine that would never happen, but it actually did happen here.
Yes, we certainly had, that was a number of years ago too, that we've had them, and it was a swatting incident, I guess they called it, and it was sent to a number of different schools, and actually it took place from somebody that was in the UK. So yeah, we take these very seriously, practicing these how to exit schools or what to do in these different scenarios. So it's important to have these instructions with students as reminders as to what happens when the police come in, what the role of the police will be, those kinds of things. And it also, as part of this whole process, the schools update if there's any new floor plans or anything like that, they update that with the police and with fire as well. So we have complete layout of the institutions.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? No, okay. Next will be the Mobile Crisis Response Team Enhancement Grant.
Yes, so this grant is for enhancements to the already existent mobile crisis response teams, and funding will be available to provide increased full-time equivalent counts of mental health addictions workers to our existing teams. Maximum request is $120,000 per year over 2 years, so a maximum of $240,000 total. The deadline for this application is October the 13th, and we've already started discussions with addictions and mental health to come together to put an application together.
Very good. Okay. If we could talk about the amendments to Section 172 of the Highway Traffic Act.
Yes, this information is from the Ministry of Transportation. And as you may recall, I updated the board on the Moving Ontario More Safely Act in 2021 at our June board meeting to combat street racing. And so This update reflects that as of September the 12th, legislative and regulatory changes to the stunt driving and street racing now carries with it a maximum or a 14-day vehicle impoundment and a 30-day vehicle license suspension at the roadside. That's up from 7 days.
Okay.
And it also, it talks about stunt driving and street racing will be expanded to apply to off-road locations such as parking lots, bike paths, trails, that types of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Darren, can I just ask a question, another question?
Yeah, for sure.
Have we been in touch with the universities and colleges, and how are we to help disseminate the new changes? Because I know street racing is an issue around some of our institutions.
We've certainly educated the public on the new changes. It's gone through social media. It's gone through the regular media route. I noticed that just the other day, our traffic unit tweeted out on Centennial Drive 122 and a 50. So we're out there and we're actually promoting that when we do catch them and catch the speeds and so forth. So the education is out there for sure. But I appreciate with the schools and so forth, they've got the big parking lots and so forth in the evenings. So yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. And then there's the changes to the Ontario Amber Alert program.
This is from the OPP regarding, as you said, changes to the Amber Alert program. So they're responsible for activating Amber Alert requests within the province of Ontario if a child is reported as being abducted and the case merits meets the requirement guidelines. So this is done via the requesting agency to filling out an Amber Alert activation form. And this newly revised form is now electronic and has the capacity to immediately translate the alert into French, allowing concurrent English and French alerts going out. In addition, there's now the capacity to add multiple victims to this and abductors and append images to the form as well. So those are enhancements that are happening, and this has been disseminated throughout our organization.
Very good. Hi, Jimmy. Welcome to the meeting. Jimmy Hassan. Jimmy, you have.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry for being late. I just got my cellular data on. I purchased it. New set.
You have your hand up on the frame. Do you have a question?
Okay.
Okay. No question? Good. Right on.
No, I don't have a question yet. So I was just, I'm in.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm
Very
trying
good.
to still catch up on.
Okay, thank you. And then we have the 32nd annual general meeting. And what will be the contents of that meeting? From what I understand, the CAPG will need of the members of the board that will be attending this event will need a voting nominee, someone that can vote on behalf of the board. Who will be attending this general meeting? I guess I will be. Bridget. And I guess we need a vote to vote who will be the voting person on behalf of the board. I nominate Bridget. All in favor?
Nominate you. No, I nominate you. No.
Okay, done. Bridget, you'll have the voting. Unless I should have asked Bridget. Is that something you would like to do, or would you like me to do that? I don't know your schedule.
Well, I felt as chair that you would be the one.
Then I will be the one. May I have a vote for I having the vote on behalf of the board for at the CAPG meeting?
I
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. And then we next is a reminder of the upcoming Zone 2 meeting. You and I are doing that, Bridget, tomorrow. And so that'll be very interesting, I'm sure. We'll fill the board in on the, we'll take notes and fill the board in on what we learned. And then delegations, there's none, reports, none, motions, none.
Oh, sorry, there is one motion. That was the addendum.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, so May I have a motion for introducing a veteran officer new to the city of Kingston to start in October. Chief, would you like to comment on the new hire?
Yes, thank you. I welcome here Anthony Hampton. And Constable Anthony Hampton has been a police officer since September of 2014 with the Toronto Police Service. Since February of 2019, he's been a detective constable with the Youth and Family Services in 51 Division, where he was responsible for investigating sexual assaults, intimate partner domestic violence, youth crime, and elder abuse. From 2014 to 2019, Anthony worked as a constable in the Priority Response Unit, which was also in the 51 Division, where he performed uniform patrol duties in a busy division downtown. During his time in the Priority Response, he completed 6 months of professional development positions in both the Criminal Investigations Bureau and the Community Response Unit. So a little bit of a history with him in terms of education. He's obtained his Ontario Secondary School Diploma from Danforth Collegiate Technical Institute in Toronto in 2001. He then attended Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick, where he obtained a Bachelor's of Arts degree with a double major in history and philosophy. In 2008, he attended the University of New Brunswick, where he earned a Master's of Arts degree in history. He was also a PhD candidate in history at the University of Guelph before he left to pursue a degree or to pursue his career in policing. So Anthony currently volunteers with the Al Purdy A-Frame Association, which is a charity established to preserve the A-Frame, a meeting place for poets and aspiring poets. He resides in Kingston here with his wife and their 3 children, and we welcome him to the Kingston Police.
Very good. Thank you. Donna, you have your hand up on your video screen. Do you have a question?
I don't mean to have my hand up. Maybe
have
I
any
hit that.
answer?
I might have hit that quickly when I was unmuting. Sorry.
Very good. Okay, so and then for unfinished business. So what
Okay,
I'd
so
like to,
sorry. So we still need a motion.
oh, may I have a
I
motion
move-
to accept
I
the new
move-
hire, Anthony Hampton to our police services?
I move.
Jimmy, Bridget, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Welcome aboard, Anthony. And then on to unfinished business, Kingston Police 2022 budget. So to get the process started, there's a few questions I have to the chief about budgetary for 2022. So first one would be, what are the expected Kingston Police Services outcomes for 2022? Second would be, what budget changes and internal offsets, example, shifting of resources, priorities, needed to accomplish those outcomes? And how will we know the outcomes have been accomplished?
Well, thank you. So really, to start the conversation, I can mention that the Kingston Police participated in the City of Kingston public engagement meeting about the Kingston Police budget, and that occurred July 19th, 2021. That was via Zoom. We also, John Howes has been meeting with the inspectors and staff sergeants. He started meeting with them in June to discuss budgetary requirements for 2022. We've also had some consultations with CFO and Treasurer Desiree Kennedy on the potential budget increase. And of course, we had in last month's budget, the letter from the municipality about the budget increases. So we are still in the process of consulting and building our 2022 objectives. As the budget is not yet finalized, the presentation to the board, as you know, will occur in detail next October and the board meeting then, and then to council late in November after you've approved it. So again, we are still working on our 2019 and 2022 strategic plan. So as a result, the strategic plan is really going above and beyond all the good work that is being done by our officers day in and day out, not only by frontline, but in our specialty units. So when I look at our headings that we have within our business plan, and where we are looking at moving to next year. The first heading is designing new ways of dealing with challenging social trends. And so the first important priority, of course, is mental health. It always is an important priority for us. And as I've mentioned before, we've this year we've done a lot of work with our COAST model, our MCERT teams. We've talked about an MOU, a memorandum of understanding that we'll be working with the addictions mental health, so that there's an alternative response to priority 3 and 4 calls for service for persons in crisis. So what's happening is this year we're rolling out that training so that everybody understands what their roles are. And then so for 2022, we are actually rolling this out, and we will be looking at how this impacts our policing, how many the reduction in calls for service that it'll come to the police, how many are diverted to this new crisis team. So those are some of the measurements that we can take a look at. Then the next area that we're looking at, of course, is community safety and well-being plan. Of course, that was adopted by City Council in June of 2021. The implementation of this plan and the development of targets was beginning this fall of 2021. So really the progress moving forward in implementing this model, we'll be looking at, you know, what kinds of, what accomplishments have been done that have been part of that the Kingston Police will be part of. So those are some of the measures of how we can measure the accomplishments from 2020 in 2022. At this point, I don't have any of those objectives because they haven't been developed yet, but the committee, the advisory committee, which Jeff is part of, that we will be meeting in the fall and developing what that might look like. So as
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The next item under the same heading of challenging social trends is looking forward is again continuing on with the opioid epidemic. So we're really looking at the drug unit and how we're going to restructure that, not with any additional expenses, mind you, but it's just how we're going to be staffing that internally with a continued focus on individuals and organized crime groups that traffic and illegally manufacture and import drugs in our community, especially the fentanyl and the crystal meth that's happening, and along with the associated illegal guns that we're finding. So really a targeted approach in that area. So that's going to be a priority for us. And of course, measures about this would be, you know, increased charges, the number of asset forfeiture seizures that we're getting, the increased number of guns that we're seizing, decrease in potentially drug-related crimes that are happening. So those are some measures that could happen. So really talking about some qualitative and some quantitative measures. Again, we haven't got specifics yet, but I'm giving you the generalities here. Under the heading of implementing a new evidence-informed policing and staffing model, we will be continuing on with we've had a pilot project with the alternative response unit. We'll be getting a summary on that this year, and we'll be moving ahead with that restructure of the alternative response unit in 2022 and how that impacts our patrol units in additionally removing calls for service and being assigned to the alternative response unit. And again, a lot and what that staffing complement is going to look like. The other area that we're looking at is the zone realignment committee work that will be being accomplished in 2022 as well. Under the heading of recruit, retain, and develop the best policing team possible, we're looking at, as we have mentioned already, that we've partnered with KCHC in terms of looking at engaging the consultations within our community. So that's just starting now. They've hired some people that are going to be working on that with us, but that engagement with our consultation community starts now and will be going on into the new year. So it's a partnership for a year that we will be doing that. They will help us inform us with the community on our strengths and identify opportunities to improve our service delivery, as well as the development of a community inclusion council, which will be happening next year to bring together community members and law enforcement to offer solutions to issues. So rolling that out will be happening next year. The other idea that's happening for next year is the creation of an internal equity, diversity, and inclusion working group that's made up of our internal members to bring matters of concern forward to the Office of the Chief. In partnership, another way of improving our team is we're working in partnership with Queen's University for a leadership development program designed to identify officers with leadership potential earlier in their career and provide formal training and mentoring for them. And this was developed with the assistance of our training unit, being Constable Trevor Bethune. And again, the final area is partnering with the City of Kingston to utilize their human resources management system, creating efficiencies and managing our members' careers through their employment, tracking their movements, promotions, managing the benefits. For example, flagging when a member reaches the age of 55 and the benefits now convert to the healthcare spending account. Currently, it's being done on spreadsheets and so forth. This will really increase our efficiencies. We're also looking to partner with the city on their online training platforms that we can benefit from with our members. And under the area of safeguarding our reputation and investing in relationships, again, the whole KCH partnership development of the Community Inclusion Council and bringing the law enforcement and community members together to bring solutions is really going to be the main focus of driving our EDI strategy forward. Under building capacity for high performance in a changing world, we're looking at implementing the NG 911. We were building a case to hire an additional IT user support person to fully implement technologies and to allow our current IT analyst support person to focus more on the training. This will allow for quicker abilities to implement new hardware and applications and provide timely user support. In this case, we were looking at deferring the hiring of this person till closer to the 1st of November. So it's not such a big budget increase this year or for 2022. We're also looking at additional software as we roll out our Office 365 and some CyberNet internet incident response plan training that will be occurring. So your question then with respect to offsetting to allow for these outcomes, I can talk about the fact that we're hiring again. Many times we've talked about this before, is hiring 4th class constables to replace retirements. And that will provide some savings. So in the 2022 budget, benefits from hiring 4th class in 2021 and 2020. So we're seeing some of the savings from that. So we have reduced our fuel consumption in 2022 budget based on past trends. We've reduced our electricity budget based on the LED lighting and solar panels that are occurring as we speak. We've increased revenues in our background checks, which will be more comparable to our comparators. And we've some softer savings that we have are being able to work more remotely from home. And this is again for accommodation purposes. So when persons can actually do the work, but maybe not at the station here, they can work remotely from home. So we will have some cost benefit savings from that, softer savings from that. And thanks to the pandemic, of course, that's helped us to be able to keep utilizing that. Again, more training done in Zoom rather than in person gives us some soft cost savings. And our court appearances via Zoom are also occurring for some soft savings. Again, community partnerships to respond to calls for service instead of the police are important and will continue to be important for us. And I've mentioned, of course, some strategies already, but as a reminder, bylaw, great partnerships with bylaw with respect to noise complaints, enforcements of COVID and the encampments. And of course, provincial grants that are provided to the police benefit our community. And as an example, the Community Safety and Policing Program, which is our MCERT program, the money there, of course, goes directly to the community in terms of our response to persons in crisis. So in the 2021 budget, we had provided a 3-year forecast to council regarding our projected annual increases. And for 2022, the forecasted budget was an increase of 2.6%. But in preparing the 2022 budget, the following costs are really out of our control and have increased the 2022 budget forecast by just over $300,000. So contractual changes covering up to $10,000 for SIU legal fees adds approximately $50,000 to our budget. Increase in city insurance rates and Kingston Police building fees as prescribed by the city comes at an increase of about $75,000, just over that. We assumed status quo in 2021 for the court security prisoner transportation grant, when in fact our grant was actually decreased by 74,000, which we were just recently advised. So that was not an impact that we weren't expecting. In 2021, we have had unanticipated maternity leave absences in our human resources unit, requiring some contract hiring for a short-term replacement, and that comes at a cost of about $41,000, just over $41,000. An increase in gasoline prices is occurring in 2022 as advised by the city. So we mirror what they're doing. And again, contractual change in the healthcare spending account adds to our budget for 2022. Oops. And so, you know, as in terms of how we will be, well, we know that these outcomes have been accomplished. You know, we're developing our qualitative and quantitative measures for this. I've mentioned some of them. We're still working in progress of how we are going to be meeting those objectives. But again, they will be reported to you at the annual report as well, during the annual report at the end of next year as well. So that's really just a high level view of what we're doing. Of course, it's not going to as detailed as you are going to be getting at the next board meeting. It's still a work in progress. We still have work to do. And welcome any input or suggestions that you have.
No, well, members of the board, if there's questions, thank you. I understand that budgets are always evolving and there are things unforeseen that you can't really budget for, like the price of fuel or cost of benefits, things like that. So is there any questions from any members of the board?
Yes, I have a question. Is the chief able to tell us a little bit more about the person we are going to have to implement the EDI issues or the values we're trying to add into the city or to the organization? What was the role will be for the money we are asking for?
So that role is was a contract with KCHC, and that is to work to facilitate the community consultations with our community partners, and that's ongoing discussions on our service delivery, how we can improve on that, and you know how we can. There might be some special projects that we're having that we would like some input in that can be occurring during that time. So that's what's happening with KCHC to facilitate that. It's a year-long project.
Okay, thank you.
If that's what you meant, like in terms of the internal committees, we're going to be, you know, doing our own work with our own internal committee on equity, diversity, and inclusion. They'll be developed. It'll be made up of members within our own organization. They'll be developing a terms of reference, that kind of thing, and then we will progress from there. So that hasn't been developed yet, but it will be developed once that committee is structured for next year.
In the future, we will be, or in the next few months, we will be able to see a brief plan with the community partners and within the organization, what kind of steps will be taken or we are going to take to make sure the budget is well spent towards that direction with the EDI.
Okay. Okay. I'm just making note of that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Jimmy. Christian, you have a question? Your hand is up.
I want to thank the chief for the transparency and the overview That was very helpful. I have a couple of questions. The first is whether there are any offsets that the chief foresees for some of the increased costs relative to other measures that the service is taking internally to offset those specifically for 2022 and what those look like. My other question concerns prospects for or any anticipated civilianization or contracting of any of the services that Kingston Police delivers. I implicitly heard at least one when it comes to mental health and the prospects of contracting, providing synergies for the service. Another prospect is, for instance, you had mentioned the court security costs, that those are in other jurisdictions, for instance, delivered by contractors, not necessarily by police. Those are just a couple, but just generally any thoughts that the chief might have, or you might defer on the question and circle back to us at the next meeting if you prefer.
I can talk to you about the court security and prisoner transportation, and that the ministry was undergoing a whole review of that because they pay the services on that. And so we have not heard the results of that yet. So it would be them that would be looking at having some options in terms of what that contracting out would look like. So I really can't speak to what that might look like, but that's definitely an option that the ministry is addressing, and that will impact us as well. And those are one of the things that are some of the unknowns that are happening in our budgets. And in terms of, with looking at partnering with our community agencies to respond to calls for service rather than the police, those are definitely ongoing. As you rightly mentioned, with our mental health services, that's definitely a partnership that's happening. There's always going to be explorations to see whether there's other partnerships that can occur. Certainly, I've mentioned the bylaw, where a bylaw are responding to a lot of the calls for service in terms of noise complaints, in terms of noisy parties, the encampments, the homeless poverty issues. They're dealing a lot with that, so that the policing aren't necessarily being the first responder unless, of course, there's a safety issue. So those partnerships are happening, and we're really grateful for the work that bylaw is doing with us. And of course, our special constables help us with that as well, so that there's extra roles and additional roles that have occurred for our special constables in that area. And then with respect to our community safety and well-being plan, I think there's opportunities there once that rolls out to have opportunities for partnering and looking at addressing calls for service in different ways where potentially the police won't be responding to that. So I think that's always an ongoing way of how can we reduce the calls for service that don't necessarily have to be the police primary response. So I can tell you that, assure you, that's top of mind for us as a way to modernize and to become more efficient. So in terms of the offsets, so I have mentioned some of the offsets in terms of, hiring fourth-class constables, and obviously we're mixing that in with experienced officers as well, but we're always mindful that that is of assistance to us when we're, you really have, as you know, we mix a blend of fourth class and experienced officers, but by hiring fourth, it does assist in some cost savings there when you have a senior officer that's retiring at the highest pay level. I also talked a bit about sort of the fuel consumption reductions, where we would be having some savings in that, and that's based on fuel consumption that's based on trends that we've been seeing. I've talked about the electricity budget, what we've reduced based on what we've seen in the past through our electricity consumption. So we've reduced our 2022 consumption, and that's based on the LED lights and hopefully as we're seeing some impact with the solar panels when they get established. Like I said, there's been a lot of work on our building with that, and we thank the city for that. Again, we talked a bit about the softer costs as well as the remote work from home. So we have lost where we would typically have maybe people be on sick leave or something if they can't come to work, like say a physical injury of some sort, but they can actually work remotely, then we still are able to utilize remote work as soft costs and not losing the ability to work. And it might be that also, you know, if the pandemic continues, that we're not losing the work structure. People are working from home just like it has been happening throughout the city. So those are good soft costs where we won't be losing the work function. So those were some of the examples that I gave. And I don't know if you were thinking of some others that might be there. Okay. I've got, you know, we're obviously going to be presenting in October what those actual numbers are. So in detail, but these are the high level discussions. And like I say, October will show you exactly what those reductions are going to look like.
Very good. Thank you, Angie. Any other questions? Okay. Next would be new business, of which there is none. And so I'd like a motion to move into in camera. Jeff, Bridget, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you for joining us today on the Zoom webinar, and till the next time.
Thank you.